Shalom, RasTafari. Greetings, brothers and sisters. This is Wyndham Yadin, and we want to discuss some of the Kemet on trial, the Kemet on trial aftermath, right? The aftermath of the. Let's pull this up. There we go, right here. All right, I got a lot of bass there in the place. So yeah, the Sunday, February 8th, 2015, a lot of discussion on who won. Was it the Hamites, right? Or the Kemites? Or was it the, so-called Black Hebrew Israelites? Basically, this Kemet on trial was a mistrial. It really was a mistrial. I mean, almost from the start, yes, there was a lot of, it was entertaining, very exciting. Sarnetta and Sarnetta TV and the House of Consciousness bringing forth some food for thought, a lot of food for thought, I would say right there. So we're not gonna just demonize it like some, Ethiopia hating, so-called Hebrew Israelites, so-called Black Hebrews. But basically it was a mistrial from the get-go. Because most of the charges against so-called Kemet, I mean, what were they? Polite even mentioned that nauseatingly, but then he was playing the role, right, of one in the defense position, right? And what this demonstrates is that the Hebrews don't really know how to set up court and that they're unequally yoked. I want to do a part 2 where I actually discuss are the Black Hebrew Israelites still in bondage, right? Or are they still enslaved in Kemet? They must be, right? Because all this Kemet, homosexuals, Kemet, homosexual, and even on that particular point there, when it was brought forward, what is in the Bible from the quote King James Version. I mean, I don't want to even just look at the AOC, GOCC lines of Israel, the Hebrew war machine, and how unequally yoked they were. So you have a set of so-called Black Hebrews, the Hebrew Israelites, who are the Old Testament only crowd. Then you have a next set who believe in or have faith in the Moshiach, the Messiah or Christ, right? That he exists, that he's coming, or that he was and he's returning in the return of Christ, or ones will call so-called Messianic. And they yoked up together. So who's breaking covenant? Who really needs to be on trial? Who needs to be on trial here? But I kind of knew this from the beginning. That's why I said to my brothers, and especially the RasTafari and the Ethiopian Hebrews, and the Hebrew really, there's no H in Hebrew in either the Hebrew or the Ethiopic, and the Ethiopic is a Shemitic language because that's where the Shem priests or the Sem priests actually come from. But that's actually the root, right, of the Nile Valley civilization is the Nile Mountain, right? The Nile Mountain culture. All right. But anyway, we'll touch on that a little bit right there. I just wanted to just put this out that basically the Kemet on trial, mistrial, or the Kemet on mistrial, right? The Kemet on mistrial. The fact is that Kemet, or what we call Kemet, Mitzrayim, that's where the Hebrew should have come from. But there is so many points. This is why, we could come out with more, even to the defense of the true, biblical, scriptural perspective. But since they fulfill what, since they fulfill what Isaiah chapter 20 says, they shall be afraid and ashamed, right? And this is speaking to what the Israelites, right? Because it's the prophet Yeshayahu or Isaiah is speaking to the Israelites. He's speaking to Israel. It says they shall be afraid and ashamed, right, of Ethiopia, their expectation, and of Egypt, their glory, Right? So there's this kind of love-hate relationship that even contradicts the Bible or the Tanakh. If you're like, nasty or Nazi Yeshuvael. Yes, we know we did the video and we said that Nazi and Hashar, I mean, they came out with that energy. They came out with that fire because that's how we expect, these sort of House of Consciousness or Hawk Sarnetta TV debates to be, so they basically gave us, what we expected. I'm not going to say just a good show in the sense that it was just a show, but you know how we as so-called black peoples, irrespective of, some folks will fake it and say, oh, why we have to debate it is we should be coming together and so forth and so on. And they were watching it too, or they watched it in reruns, like a sitcom. Right. So let's just not fake no funk about that. But this whole Kemet on trial was a mistrial because Kemet has already been tried. It has already been judged. It has already been sentenced, and the sentence has already been executed. Right. That has already happened thousands of years ago. So it's like beating a dead horse. And our approach to Mitzrayim and Kemet or ancient Egypt from a pseudo-Bible, pseudo-Hebrew, Israelite perspective that you see demonstrated or demonstrated is all off. So those Hebrews or those Israelites who decided that they wasn't even going to get involved in this. Some of them sat on the sidelines. They might have been the ISUPK and even ones like GMS. Right? They were more consistent and true, right, to their proclaimed faith or belief, so forth and so on. Right? Because they said we're not going to even dabble with this, so forth and so on. If they don't deal with the so-called 6-pointed star, you know what I mean? They're not going to really get together, with others, about, they're not going to be unequally yoked. Because, they're seeking to be at least faithful, and you have to, on a certain level, acknowledge that, right? And some would say respect, but I would say you have to kind of honor that right there as at least being right and exact and faithful and true according to your ability to do with what you say you are about. But overall, the Kemet on trial, or the Kemet was on mistrial. Kemet was straight up on mistrial, but yet this is, like I said, this is some very good, some entertainment, which is on a little higher level because of the discussion, what we're discussing and the perspective, whether it is Nile Valley civilization, right? Or what they call Nile Valley consciousness, or Bible teachings, that which is for what we know as the lost sheep of the house of Israel. Now, some will say Isis, Ray, and El, right? Isis, Ra, and El. Now, or, they could really, we're not going to even get into that. Isis, okay, well, that's a whole other matter. Not, you see, because many of us are just beginning to learn halves of the story. People are becoming more aware of, so-called real black, history, right? Outside of that limited paradigm of post-traumatic, so-called white, to white slave mentality, right? The so-called white slave mentality. Look at that fade to black right there. Anyway, brothers and sisters, little more. Okay, let's come back up because we're going to stop it. All right. So the whole Kemet on mistrial. So the black Hebrews put Kemet on mistrial. That's basically what we have witnessed. The black Hebrews putting Kemet on mistrial, and that's because of what the prophecy, what the word says. And we get the so-called Christ-believing Hebrew Israelites and the Antichrist Hebrew Israelites. We say Antichrist, they don't accept Christ. They come with their own sort of kumbaya and intellectualism. So this was a intellectual free-for-all. People say, well, Wyndham, RasTafari, Rabbi, who won? I mean, who do you say won? See, that's how you're thinking in that mentality. Who won? I think we all won. I think both sides won when you look at it. You know, both sides won. I think that those who lost were those who are seeking a so-called easy win. Those who are seeking a kind of a win. Oh, we won, you know, this divide and conquer. They lost. All right. They lost in their own mentality until they have a change of mind, until they're born again. And then you will win, because then you'll begin to start to weigh and balance. This was an opportunity for ones to weigh and balance. This was like an opportunity to check the pulse, right, of the so-called consciousness within the black community. Even if some Hebrew Israelites say, we're not black conscious, not black, what you call them, because see, those are the ones that don't want to take no responsibility. Right? When shit happens amongst black people, they want to act like, that's not me. You understand? That's somebody else. So when they come for this one, they come for that one, they come for the next one. When they come for you, there'll be no one to say nothing because you didn't take responsibility and do what you had to do. You see what I'm saying? You know, and what sometimes we have to do is just to, you know, watch and receive and begin the discussion, you know, so I wanted just to put out this word that it was a Kemet on mistrial, that the black Hebrews put Kemet on mistrial. And if ones want to say, well, who won? You understand? We thought that it was very entertaining what Hashar and we say entertaining. I want you to understand the semantics of entertaining. Don't want to sound like polite or brother polite on that level, but he is right on that level that a lot of ones just don't know what they just don't know. So if you say entertaining, they're going to think you mean it's a ha-ha, hey, it's a joke or something like that. No, entertaining means to entertain something, a thought or idea in mind, right? To meditate on it and hopefully to grow, right? To grow, right? To grow so that the true divine light, right? The true divine light can have expression in your life according to your, for lack of a better word, your spirituality. But see, spirituality, before you can get into spirituality, you have to get off this materiality. And we say getting off the materiality doesn't mean that we forsake having material things, because a lot of these haters out there, you know what I mean? Oh, they made money. They made money. Want to make that the big discussion about they made money putting on events. So effing what? So what? But see, that's the level of their consciousness. Right. So we use the word consciousness and don't even recognize there are different levels of consciousness. And if you've been in the so-called consciousness or recognizing the importance and the need for being conscious, right, and even observing your own heart and your mind and checking yourself, then you'll recognize that you even grow. Right. So this was an opportunity to grow. But the Kemet on trial was a mistrial. Right. And we don't, you know, people, I seen the video. They're talking about, oh, we want to appeal this, right, with Bez Hanouf, the cop or the police officer. I'm like, what the? He has an Egyptian name, and he's the one who led off the Hebrew war machine. And what the? You know, what is really going on here? You see what I'm saying? And then one set, you know, one group, right, says we're just Old Testament, Tanakh, right? And don't even recognize that Tanakh is a Canaanite city, and that doesn't even really appear in the Bible except as a Canaanite city, and we were supposed to destroy the Canaanite cities. But you say, oh, that's an acronym that you got from the so-called Jews who call themselves Jews, because really, how old does that go? So, you see, this is where the missing key, and this is what we put out in the video earlier about Ethiopia. Ethiopia is at the root, right, of both of these. See, this is where the divide and conquer comes from. When we look at so-called Israel or Hebrew, and we look at the colony. That's what Mitzrayim was a colony in the land of Ham, right, in the land of Ham, in the land of Ham, in the land of Kam. Right, later to be called Gibbets, but really coming from the Het Ka Ptah, where you get Giptos, Aguptos, Gipt, you know, and Coptos, so forth and so on. But all that has a Ethiopian connection. And here's the interesting thing, that the ancient language, right, that we know of, quote, Ethiopia is right? Sounds like Giza, Gaza, Agazi. See any similarity? But it's a Shemitic language. And who were the priests? The priests were the Sem priests, the Shem priests, right? But see, that might be a little bit above one's acumen. And I want to do a next vid. There's a next vid on something that I saw, I think Shaka Amos had put forward, because he seems to really, hang on those Jebusite, so-called Gentile Jews nuts. They have a PhD, so forth and so on. They know more about the Bible as his proof that those who have but I think he only knows about the Hebrews from these Hebrews, really. These are the Hebrews he encountered, these street corner so-called Israelites, or these, I'm not going to say celebrity Israelites, but the Israelites who you see out there. And there's the common misperception to think of these Israelites that you see out there on the road to really represent, the Israelites, the ones you see on the YouTubes to represent the Israelites. And many of them don't really give you a history of the real Israelitish movement, right? Or the Hebrew movement among black peoples. So you can really put it into perspective, because what you'll see happen is some nigga shit. Some nigga shit, like where these niggas, were coming up together and almost like the Supremes. You remember them all together, and Diana Ross broke off, and you have like Beyonce and Destiny Child, and she break off to be a celebrity and star. You find this has happened too, right? Among, this people in this spiritual Egypt, right? In the spiritual Egypt. But the Kemet on trial was a straight up mistrial, right? Was a straight up mistrial. Because we didn't want to even get into too much depth, because we even recognized that we were caught up on the hype as well. It's very exciting. A lot was going on. A lot was said. Check out this video. Check out that video. This one is saying that. That one is saying this, or what he said about this, so forth and so on. And, reasoning among ourselves, and even doing, our own homework and study to follow up on a few of the points. I'll say a few of the points were interesting enough that we had to just go and verify and look into, our own, documented sources, and even on the internet to see what is said out there, to follow up on certain things said on both, sides. But this is just another COINTELPRO. And when I say it's another COINTELPRO, here's what I mean. For ones not to recognize that this Kemet on trial was Kemet on mistrial. Because the Hebrew Israelites did not approach this from their primary source and reference. See, they say that they're defending the so-called God of the Bible, but they're Ham. Ham in ancient Egyptian means ignorant. This is why the Bible says they were in the land of Ham. Understand this. They were ignorant. This is why Moses said, what is your name? They were Ham. They did not know the name, right, of the Keperu, or the Keper, right, or Sa Keper, right, or the Ahya Asher Ahya. They did not know. So when that revelation came, then that missing key, they could move forward. But I have to deal with this other matter over here coming up probably in the next vid, right? About some stuff right here that you see now the Jews who call themselves Jews are talking about, right? And, Shaka Amos, he is, making much about this. Right. But still, even with the Jews that, call themselves, with the Jews that call themselves Jews, right? They say, were Jews ever really slaves in Egypt, or is Passover a myth? And here's what I say to you. When you look in the Bible, even just the King James Bible, how many times in the book of Exodus where do you find Jews mentioned? The closest you get to Jews I'm getting a little excited here. The closer you get to Jews in a Shemot, right? Or Orit Ze'at, right? Orit Ze'at. That's the Ethiopic. That's the original manuscript. The closest you get to so-called, Jews in the Hebrew book of Exodus is jewelry, right? Is jewelry. And now I want you to notice this right here that they do. On this same page that Shaka Ahmos, or as Sa Netta says, Utmos, the closest that they get right here, not the closest, but I want you to see what they do down here. Hey, you see down here? You see down here? Here we go, right here. Here we go. This is the next one we want to open up. Ancient, you see this right here? Ancient Edomite metal workers were elites, not slaves. You see this? Edom. You see Edom right there. On the same page, overstand right here. This is on the same page. You know what? Let's do this. Let's open this up for another part of this. All right? Let's open this up for another part. So ancient Edomite metal workers were elites and not slaves. But then they say this right up here. And then ones like, and we like some of the things he puts out on a certain level, to a degree, to an extent, but he's a PhD. I'm not going to say it like that right now. Perhaps this is just playing hardball, I think what's going on, and maybe this is what also this whole debate really, and this, Kemet on trial represents, a kind of a way of Negroes playing the dozens, right? This is Negroes playing the dozens, your mama. And, Now Valley Conscious is the mama of those into Now Valley Conscious, and the Bible in a sense, is like the mother, for the, with the Hebrew Israelites. But one thing that they did not do right, is they didn't prosecute this case or the case against Kemet. Because first of all, they would have had to kind of adjourn that and to kind of resubmit, right? To resubmit their particular case, right? And to take it out of this kind of, this kind of homosexual shit, because the Israelites fell off too. You see what I'm saying? So was it that the Egyptians made them? In fact, the scripture says, thou shalt not abhor. Right. And there's been a lot of hatred to just Egypt because of Egypt. So a lot of the Kemites, I guess rightfully they took an offense at that, but even more so, the God of the Bible, and I just say that generally because different ones, they don't even know the name amongst many of the Hebrew Israelite camps. They always say that they all know the right name and so forth and so on. And when we really get deep in it, we recognize these are post-traumatics, civil rights syndromes, COINTELPRO, nigger, ghetto brothers and sisters that have been, screwed around with by white supremacy. Now they pick up a Bible and they're reading it all backwards and they're missing that key. Ethiopia is that missing key, right? For both the Kemet culture and the so-called Hebrew and the Israelite culture. The Kemet on trial was a mistrial. All right. Is she?